Well, good evening, everyone. So this is our first presentation for our Community College Leadership Symposium in our course this semester. So we're in a community college leadership course. And so we're really excited to have our first Community College Leadership Symposium for Tarleton State University. It'll be a 2-night symposium. This is the first evening, and our first presentation is on community college finance from Leslie Ramon, Charles Anderson, and Tyra Bradford. So I will let you all get started.
Alrighty, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Edwards, for the introduction. Today we're going to be focusing on the community college finance, again with Dr. Edwards here at Tarleton State University. And my colleagues are Tyra and Charles. And Charles, if you don't mind moving on to the next slide, please. Alrighty, Tyra, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Hello, everyone. I am Tyra Bradford. I currently live in Lubbock, Texas, and I am a dance director here for a middle school and a high school.
And I am Leslie Cristiano Ramon, and I am a middle school reading teacher with Burleson ISD, and I am in my 3rd year of teaching.
My name is Charles Anderson. I am a 2nd grade science and social studies teacher for Ideal Public Schools.
Alrighty, and so what we're going to be discussing today is first we're going to start off with the statement of problem and the expert area introduction. Then we're going to move on to the literature review, to the observation insights, expert interview insights, best practice examples at the community college level, and we're going to end it off with our reflection. Now, questions we are going to accept at the end of the presentation, so just please kick back and enjoy, and we look forward to answering those questions at the end. Alrighty, so the big statement of problem on what we're going to be focusing on throughout our study today is community college funding. So we know that the importance of community college programs are the increased enrollment, which just drives the funding, to the student retention rates, to reaching out to the community, and that all goes down to the performance-based funding as well. Alrighty, and so the statement of the problem, which really extends of what was just mentioned, was that to maintain the beneficial offerings that community college provides and produces, the student retention rate must increase. So students must be finding success in their courses and in their graduation as well. And the issue that we've noticed that when funding decreases, the retention decreases as well. And so this can result to budget cuts, which budget cuts then result to deleting programs because the funding isn't there, which then affects the students, the professors, and just really long-term as well. So as we focus on this problem throughout the presentation, I want you guys to keep in mind the importance and the backbone that finance has for community colleges and how it literally drives everything that the college is doing.
Okay, so we have the introduction. The statement of text, or the state of Texas disperses funds for 50 community colleges statewide. There's a process utilized to ensure funds are evenly distributed amongst these campuses and are used for instruction, student services, administration, and employee benefits. The term three-legged stool explains the 3 types of funds: general revenue, tuition and fees, and local tax revenues. These funds will not look the same at every community college. It differs by location. So we all know that community colleges were originally vocational schools, which is defined as a program that provides specific skills that cater to a particular career. Community colleges are known for serving the demand of the community it is located in, which is a great way of reaching and accommodating community stakeholders. The partnerships between community college programs and businesses within the community create opportunities and, in conclusion, benefits that same community. The difference in the cost of community colleges and four-year institutions is drastic. Those that attend community college save thousands of dollars. This is a beneficial for traditional and non-traditional students. To maintain the beneficial offerings community colleges produce, the student retention rate must increase. Funding decreases when retention decreases. And yes, now we're going to be moving on. Another one.
Alrighty, for the literature review is that we know that community colleges have relied heavily on the funding for student participation in the form of enrollment and the tuition and the fee review, including financial aid. So we know that just as Tyra mentioned, how she's a dance teacher and how there's so many different programs that are involved in community colleges, from mechanics to cosmetology to phlebotomy school, is that we are really utilizing the funding all based on enrollment numbers, and what drives enrollment numbers is these programs. This is what brings the students to these community colleges.
We also understand that if there is no increase in students and retention, there will also become a decrease in the funding of those programs. So many of those programs that are heavily funded, such as mechanics, phlebotomy, cosmetology, dancing, and all of that, if there is no type of enrollment into those programs will soon decrease.
So a quick little scenario just to get us all thinking is, so let's say Caleb, he just graduated from high school in his hometown, and he always dreamed of owning his own mechanic shop since he was young. And he attends TCC here in South Arlington, and he takes some mechanical courses and he gets a certification. He's super excited and pumped up that he graduated with the automotive technology certification. And so he saves all this money, he invests, and he creates his own mechanic shop here in Arlington. Now Caleb is the proud owner of More Mechanic Shop with no debt to his name, thanks to TCC financial aid scholarships that have fulfilled his dreams. Now, if you take it back and look, maybe this relates to your life, or maybe this relates to somebody's life that you know. With that being said, this is going back to the community college funding. Now, again, going back to our statement of problem to continue your thinking, is that without the funding of these programs, without the enrollment, More Mechanic Shop wouldn't exist. Okay, so the mom and pop shop down the street wouldn't exist without these very strong programs that community college entails.
Okay, so community college is interdependent with the community. Both are needed to provide opportunities that benefit and advance the community. Community colleges are known for serving the demands of the community it is located in, which is a great way of reaching and accommodating community stakeholders. The partnerships between community college programs and businesses within the community create opportunities and, in conclusion, benefit the same community. By serving the community, these colleges bridge the gap between the needs of employers and the student population. Programs such as automotive, technology, cosmetology, and certified nursing aid assistant training can be a way of improving the economic stance of the community. So that brings us back to our scenario of automotive technology and what we are about to read now, which is cosmetology.
Yes, thank you so much, Tyra. And bouncing off of Tyra is cosmetology. So we just mentioned about the mechanic shop and what Caleb did for his community. Now, cosmetology, we all know we like a good haircut. For us girls, we like our makeup and our eyelashes and all our nails and all those fun things. Now, because of that, community college really is just a huge host for these cosmetology programs. And so this increases the enrollment by 25% in the fiscal year of 2021 to 2022. So with that being said, this scenario can really provide information that the importance of this funding is utilized through these programs, just like Tyra said. Now I want to talk about a strong word, community. Community was mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, and these communities benefits from these cosmetology shops, from these mechanic shops, just to kind of get you guys thinking as well.
The observation insight. The observation component was explored in 3 different areas of Texas: Lubbock, Burleson, and Houston. All three cities have different socioeconomic statuses with different community needs. The financial aid offices of 3 out of 50 community colleges in Texas were observed: South Plain Community College, Tarrant County College, Southeast, and Houston Community College Northeast. The financial aid offices were easily located on 3 campuses with clear sign that expressed what was offered. There was a constant in observing. There weren't, many students entered in office, but those that were entered were recent high school graduates and non-traditional students. Due to COVID-19, there were not much foot traffic in the offices, but there were many calls with financial aid questions about the upcoming semester. Employees spend most of their work days replying to emails and students in the community all over Texas.
So one of our expert interviews that I want to discuss is I had a professor, her name was Jennifer Little, and I was able to interview her throughout the course of this class. And through the interview, I learned several information about the higher education professionals and what their day-to-day look like. And so she actually, which I didn't know, she told me that she grew up in a small town right next to Texas Tech University, and she went to a small community college, right next to Texas Tech University. And she went through different marketing programs and so forth. And due to this, she was able to go on and prepare to be the professor that she is through marketing, public relations, and communications. And the community college finance was really the backbone of her education. So through this, I learned that the higher education professor plays a huge role in the young adult's life. This really gives us a better future. And again, this really, like, we can keep going back and forth of how the funding is just such a strong nature and strong material for the future success of students.
Best practices in the community. According to the slides, performance-based funding was fueled by the community. If you look at the, trying to get this done, excuse me just a second, I'm sorry, there we go. If you look at it, it said FYI, in 2017, 54% of educational revenue all across a public institution came from state funding, and 46% of net tuition were paid by students. So we realized that in financial aid that comes with tuition, and within those tuition, it breaks down different components of what it takes to take care of the campus, will take care of your books, your tuition, as well as your meal plan, as well as your housing, as well as all the extracurricular activities and programs that makes up those community colleges. Programs that will help, especially in freshmen, especially with other mechanics program, cosmetology programs. And we realized that the big word in that is community. Within that community, it branches out to what it can affect throughout your city. It can be affected throughout even within your family, those who are coming from first generation of even coming to college. And we realize that those students who do not have the opportunity to go to a four-year institution can really go around the corner to a community college and still make the best impact in their lives as well as in their family lives.
Okay, and there are many practices that could benefit community college retention rates. Can you go back one, please? Okay. Community college use a funding formula to determine 98% of general revenue funds. The funding formula is composed of 3 components: core operations, student success points, and contact hours. Core operations are the $1.3 million the community college receives in general revenue funds. The student success points measure the completion of students' educational milestones and the ability to accelerate students to the next step. Contact hours are described as a formula that determines the median cost of instruction. Community college enrollment can affect all facets of the campus for many reasons, such as funding, resources, and instruction. A decline in enrollment causes a decline in revenue, which can be fatal to the educational growth and overall stature of the campus. The Texas Commission uses 2 dimensions of inquiry that can be financially capable of successfully carrying out this current programs, and its institution able to carry out its intended programs well into the future. So we want to focus on a culture of improvement, which is community outreach, performance-based funding, which we already spoke about, and the higher enrollment practices. So as far as a culture of improvement, it is described as an institution that is open to change and constantly seeking improvement in order to help students succeed. This is vital for any educational institution. It is constantly changing as different generations enter and exit higher education. It's important to change with the profession to better connect with students and identify their needs. A study in 2006 states that approximately 900,000 students transferred, with 29% of those students transferring from a 2-year institution to a 4-year institution. The highest percent of transfer students are from community colleges. The only way to make sure this is consistent is to maintain a number of students enrolling in community colleges. Historically, these institutions depend greatly on funding for students' participation in the form of state appropriations based on enrollment and gross tuition and fee revenues.
In the reflection, there are 3 types of funding: general revenue, tuition, and fees, and local tax revenue. And all 3 of these come with the community college that is funded. All of these funds are allocated by areas that were able to allow colleges to operate functionally. However, the budget decreased when the retention rate decreased, which will soon result in the programs being defunded. Many students would lose opportunity to gain new skills or trade due to the programs being defunded. Some steps to take are to make sure that each program will receive adequate funding from federal, state, and local government, provide outreach within the community with programs to ensure that all students will receive training in a specific area to increase economic growth within their community. And I believe that is our
those are our resources. And one last thing, just to get you guys, just to leave you guys thinking, to prepare for the questions, is when you're driving, or who you know, or a professor or a colleague who has been inspired through community college programs that are offered, just really don't forget about the funding and the importance of the enrollment, and just all the participation from these students and how important it is. At this time, we'll go ahead and take questions. Feel free, and we'll love to chime in.
I would also like to add something about community college. Us as being educators, if we all are educators, we are responsible for breaking the stigma of it's not okay to go to community college. It's important that we educate our students on all all educational opportunities, just so we can ensure that whoever wants to go to higher education can and will. Now we can move on to questions. Sorry.
And I just want to congratulate you all on a great presentation. I do want to encourage anybody, if you're on social media, look at the hashtag end, like ENDCC stigma. So you'll see a lot of posts about trying to end that stigma about community college. It's an issue, and I think it's something that does need to be addressed. I'm really excited about some of your work. While you all are thinking of your questions, if you're not sure about a question to ask, and I would encourage you to ask a question. An easy question to ask is, how does community college finance affect your particular expert area? So you can fill in the blank on what that expert area is. So I'm giving you a kind of a free question to ask, okay? But you're welcome to come up with your own. But one of the questions I have is, you mentioned throughout the presentation about how funding is tied to retention rates. And you used a specific type of funding. Can you clarify again, what is the type of funding that's the reason why it is adjusted based on retention rate? Because I want to make sure the audience understands.
Are you talking about state funding that's provided to the 50 community colleges?
Sort of, yeah. So basically, in that state funding is what based? It was a term that you used.
Performance-based funding.
Performance-based funding. So performance has to do with things like retention rate, completion rate, so things like that. So that is a highly debatable topic in higher education, because a lot of people don't want to be measured on their performance. that it is our funding system in Texas is going more so in the direction of performance-based funding. But that is one of the reasons why it's kind of inversely proportional to, or, as retention rate, I shouldn't say inversely, but as retention rate decreases, the funding decreases. So it's really more directly proportional. But that was something I want to make sure you understand. And I also want to make sure that you all understand what is probably the main difference between the way community colleges are funded and the way universities are funded in Texas in terms of public institutions. There were 3 types of revenue sources. Did anybody figure out which of those revenue sources does not go to universities?
1 second, let me. It's, sorry, one moment.
And really even anybody in the audience, if they want to answer that, that's fine too. But
I believe the only thing that doesn't go to universities is the service area tax revenue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
the local tax revenue, correct. So, while yes, our state taxes that are collected in terms of sales tax and property tax, some of that money goes to the state, and then some of that money becomes general revenue. The money that is assessed specifically for the community college is separate from that. So that's a source of funding essentially that universities don't have access to, and that's one of the big drivers as to why community colleges can charge less than universities. Because people always wonder, well, why is community college tuition so much cheaper? And that's one of the big reasons. On the revenue side. On the expense side, community colleges are not known for doing a lot of research. And so universities usually are, and they have to spend money on these really expensive research labs. And they also tend to have to pay, faculty and staff sometimes higher salaries at those institutions. And so those are expenses that also drive up costs. And they have to make that up with higher tuition. So there are a lot of important lessons here, but I do want to ask you all, if there was one thing that you didn't know before you did this presentation that has stuck with you, what would that be?
How community college was funded. I had no idea.
That what Tyra mentioned, and I think just really the huge importance of enrollment and how enrollment plays such a huge factor. And to me, it's you don't think about it because you just see so many students attending class, or so many students enrolling, or making their declaration to attend a university or community college, and you don't think the importance of how enrollment plays such a huge factor.
I would say the community aspect. I'm very heavily on the community aspect. And I think that that's one of the things that I've learned is when you're driving around your own community and you see a mom and pop shop, or you see a cosmetology school, or you see a dance school, or you see a barber shop, you could see, if you walk in, you could probably see their plaque on their wall about them getting their certificate from Houston Community College or Tarrant County College. And you can see that those schools are actually making impact within the community, and that they can actually go out and make a better living for their family.
Well, and I just also want to commend you, because I don't know if you all noticed, but when you all did the observation, you talked about the 3 different places across the state that you got information. And that's huge, because I mean, you all, by covering these, major markets in Texas, and I don't say major by population, but, just in the sense of you covered 3 different parts of the state, so that you have, I think, a very powerful voice about what's happening at community colleges today. So I don't want you to think this presentation is just something that you throw up and put together. It is, what you've done is really, really important in helping people understand how community college finance works, because it's kind of the behind the scenes work that nobody really pays attention to. But if it doesn't work, then we don't get to do what we do. So I want to turn it over to the class to ask your questions, because I know that you've got some questions, and I'm ready to hear them.
I had a question about the funding formula. You mentioned it was based on 3 points, and I think I caught core operations, student success, and contact hours, but is there somewhere you can go look at this formula, or can you expand on it a bit more?
Yes, that was correct. It is core operations, student success points, and contact hours. I got that from, one second. It was one of our readings. It's With Great Challenges Come Great Opportunities by Bruce, or Jay Bruce. I can send that to you if you would like.
Awesome. So, had sources. That's awesome. I'm excited. I know Cameron had a question as well.
Yes, thank you. So higher education finance, I just came out of our higher education finance class, but specifically community college finance is a very information heavy topic. So I commend each of you on your approach. I really appreciated the scenarios where you presented your ideas and applied them throughout your topic, but knowing that financial stress decreases retention, as you all talked about in the beginning of your presentation, and kind of understanding that financial skills are probably necessary for student confidence. One question that I have: during y'all's research, did you happen to encounter any programs where community colleges offered financial literacy support for students to assist them in developing those finance skills during their time at college? I know obviously financial support is important monetarily, but also providing those skills is a great way to do that. So did y'all happen to recognize or notice any of those programs?
I didn't notice any programs specifically to educate students on finances, but it was a community college in Florida that focused on providing student success courses for their students to ensure that they maintain enrollment for the school. So it doesn't technically help the student, it helps the institution. But no, I didn't see any programs about that.
Thank you.
So whenever I observed the financial aid office here at TCC, the Southeast campus, while I was there, I noticed that they had like just several signs posted up everywhere. Learn more about financial literacy, or have questions about your financial status. Please go to, it was like room something that students were able to go in and discuss. And that really stood out to me because I was an undergrad student in the start of 2014. Whenever I began my career, and I really don't truly, unless it was just probably me not paying attention, but I really don't remember seeing informational sessions for students to attend to become financially literate, to be able to make those smarter decisions. So that really stood out to me in regards to your question.
I could personally say, I could say yes. The community college that I went to is actually around the area that my father grew up around. So my grandmother lives around that area, my uncle lives around that area. And although they may live successfully, but you can tell that the people that lives around them is not. And so actually going into that community college and walking around, did not realize that the person who taught financial literacy was a classmate of my father's. And actually talking to him and sitting with him. And he said that this is the reason why he came back to the community college where he came from, so that he is able to teach those that's in that community that you don't have to survive off of the paycheck that you're in. We can help you. We can help you get some additional funding for you. And as well as we can help you get free tuition if possible.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
I see Karen Ward has a question.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to expand on that a little bit. Do you think that such a financial literacy program or requirement should be required before a student can even be enrolled in classes? So like, for example, new student orientation is often required before a student can register for classes. So what would you feel, or how would you feel about a financial literacy course requirement, or even just like a watch this PowerPoint type thing?
I personally think that would be great because at Texas Tech, we had to do, of course, orientation before school started, but we also had to do a drug and alcohol training. And I feel that financial literacy should also be along those lines, because here we are at 18, taking out thousands of dollars, not really understanding what an interest rate is or how it works, but we're expected to pay it back when we graduate. So yes, financial literacy classes should be required before the start date, or even before we accept loans or scholarships or grants.
Bouncing off of what Tyra said, I think the most important, I mean, one of the most common problems that we see is just like you said, 18 years old, fresh out of high school. Some students just kind of want to get away from their parents and do their own thing. And they're taking out thousands of dollars without realizing just how much that they have to pay back once they've begun their careers and they see the amount of debt that can trouble them in their future purchases and their other financial decisions that they end up making.
I could personally say that I agree with both of my classmates because coming out of high school, you're going into community college, or you're going to a four-year institution, you see that financial aid with your tuition has been paid, and you all of a sudden get a refund check, and you're happy, you're excited about this refund check, and you about to splurge it on everything that you can think that you ain't never had the amount of money to spend on. Come to find out that once you graduate, you got to pay that as well as everything else is around it. So I do believe that there needs to be a class or a program for freshmen, and not only for freshmen, but for graduate students as well, to help them to find out ways that you can help pay off these type of loans, or even problems around your home that you can help around as well.
And I just
I
want to put
definitely
it out.
agree. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Karen. I just want to put it out there, particularly for those of you who are going to still be taking other classes. If that's something that you all want to study, I would be willing to be your, research mentor. And if you want to go out and, survey the community colleges in Texas to see who's providing any kind of financial literacy resources to their students, and in what format are they delivering it, that would be a great, I think, future research project if any of you all are interested. So just let me know if that's something you want to do. Karen Prado.
Hi. So my question is, just because we've been going through this, I've been going through this as a parent. So I wanted to know, did you guys come through any research or see anything that was scholarship based for community college? Like how many students receive not just financial aid, but scholarships? Are there any scholarships available at the community college level? And if you researched that and found any, can you share them with me? For my own self.
Unfortunately, I didn't research any scholarships, but I know that the Pell Grant is given to community college students, which is extremely helpful because it pretty much covers all of instruction. So unless they need housing or anything extra like housing meal plan, then there would be some spillage. But as far as credited hours, the Pell Grant can cover that depending on the amount of hours or the number of hours.
Bouncing off of Tyra too, Karen, I think just like you mentioned, as a parent, I was a tour guide in college, so I dealt with a lot of parents asking gazillion questions about financial aid. And just one suggestion that I would make is to utilize the college website. They post all of their scholarships and what you could be eligible for. And just like Dr. Edwards mentioned, financial aid and just the finance aspect is really the backbone, kind of playing behind the scenes. And once you do your research and you understand thoroughly, it really makes a huge difference in the course of your college career.
And Michaela's got a question.
Yes. Okay. So For dual credit at community colleges, what is the funding like for that? Because I went to a high school that paid for it, but I also went to a school that had like 20 something kids. So I was wondering what the funding is like for other schools on students attending dual credit while still in high school.
So the high school that I went to, they offer dual credit and the district paid for it. The school that I work at currently is an early college. So you pretty much just apply for the early college, and if you get accepted, the district pays for it as well. So you have the opportunity to graduate with up to 60 hours.
I just know there's a school beside us that they don't pay for their students dual credit hours. So I was wondering if there is funding for those students.
So, random off topic, Rachel here. I was actually the dual credit coordinator for my campus before I moved over to TRIO and student services. So in the state of Texas, if the school district or a private third party doesn't pay, they don't qualify for any federal or state aid unless you have a high school diploma or a GED. Now, some schools like Navarro, we have a foundation where we raise money every year. And so the school, like the college that actually manages and presents and does all of the classes, they may have something that you can ask them about, but typically when it comes to federal or state aid, dual credit doesn't qualify for it.
Thank you for that, Rachel.
And the requirements vary by high school. Some, like if you're just at a regular high school, not an early college, sometimes they require PSAT scores at a certain level, or sometimes they require certain kinds of grades or certain number of, you may be a certain classification like a junior or senior. So it really varies by school district, based on the size and, the amount of funds that they have access to in terms of what the requirements are in order to take college classes as a high school student.
Yeah, for sure. And in the state of Texas, I know they have testing waivers that you can use that typically waive them from having to take the TSI or be TSI completing things. That typically it's like the PSATs, or now they call it the STAR test. So you can take the STAR test. And if you score, at a certain level on Algebra 1 and English 2, it can waive you from the ELAR and or the math. I believe it's over 4,000 on those, and it'll waive you from having to test. Then, of course, if you're waived from having to test and they complete something that's in that credit field, so say they are waived from reading and writing testing because of their STAR test that they took sophomore year, and then they sign up and they take English 1301 dual credit. Well, if they pass that with a C or higher, they're just considered TSI complete, and so they don't have to take any entrance test going into college.
Yeah, and we didn't even get into the implications of these students, coming into college with these credits and the benefits of that in terms of being able to have understood what college classes are like and already have some college out of the way, reduce their time to degree. And so lots of questions. And then also how does dual credit compare to advanced placement? And that's another big debate, but lots and lots of benefits. So, I want to thank you all for presenting today. I think this is one of these topics that if you're going to be moving forward in educational leadership, whether you're at the K-12 or the higher ed level, you need to understand finance because it drives everything we do. And, this is, I think, an excellent explanation of kind of what some of the details are and to make it make sense for everyday folks who aren't in the finance sphere every day. So I want to thank you. And I also want to thank students for asking great questions. This is exactly what I want to see in terms of engagement, but excellent job.
Thank you.